Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sunday's edition, of Weekend Waypoints, a production of SEC Extra at D1Baseball.com. Joe Healy here to recap Saturday's games, look ahead to Sunday's games. And as I'm doing this, I realized I didn't give everyone a heads up that I'm going live on social media, so you're going to get a little peek behind the curtain as I tweet out that I'm live here. So hold on for me for just 1 second. Considering this is the first time all season where I've forgotten to do this, I'm going to take that as a win. And considering how busy this weekend is with regionals and whatnot, I'm not surprised it happened this weekend. So hold tight just for 1 second. Let me finish sending this out. Got to grab the YouTube link. All right. All right. Thank you for your patience. All right. So a mixed bag Saturday for the SEC. 4-7 was the record. None of the non-host teams won. So that was tough because it means that basically all of those teams will either are eliminated. A couple teams got eliminated, and the rest are going to have to come to the losers bracket if they're going to advance to a super regional, and that is obviously a tough road. Real quick, Austin Jabali on YouTube asked where to today. I'm going to Athens today. That's why I'm coming to a little bit later in the morning than I did yesterday, because I'm staying in Athens and I'm 10 minutes to the ballpark instead of 90 minutes. So Moonshine on YouTube, first time and long time caller. Awesome ugly shirt. Thank you. This is my cactus shirt. Going with a little cactus theme today. Would have fit in well at the Tucson regional had I been sent there. All right. Before I get to anything else here, I have to let you know that this episode of Weekend Waypoints and all Sunday episodes of Weekend Waypoints are brought to you by Active Wealth Management. Ford Stokes, Sam Davis, my guys out there at Active Wealth Management. As always, go to activewealth.com, click schedule a consultation to get a free 401k review. That's a $1,500 value. Also, you can catch Ford and Sam in all their various media appearances. They're on TV in Atlanta and in Huntsville, Alabama. They have a radio show in those markets as well called Retirement Results. So make sure you check out everything they're creating there and visit activewealth.com. Let's get to the games. Why don't we? Let's start with the eliminated teams. I put the two eliminated teams up top, and then the rest of the order is literally just pulled in alphabetical order by name of regional. So no particular order once we get past the eliminated teams here. High Point 10, Vanderbilt 9. This was the game I was at, and I credit High Point, a scrappy team. Clemson found that out Friday night. But if you're Vanderbilt, it's frustrating because it seems like with Vanderbilt all year, it's been a little bit like this, that if it's not one thing, it's the other. The biggest issue they've had is offensive production, but there have also been times where they've scored enough and the pitching has let them down. So it's not even like Arkansas where, 99 times out of 100, the pitching is good enough and it's just a matter if the offense is enough, or Kentucky where the offense is almost always enough and is the pitching going to hold? For Vanderbilt, it feels like it could be either. And for a team to make it into regionals with that being the case, I think is more rare than not. But it was the pitching here. They just couldn't really stop the bleeding. Bryce Cunningham was fine until he wasn't, and then Brennan Cyber was fine until he wasn't, and then they ended on Carter Holton, and he looked healthy. The velo was up in the mid-90s, but he had trouble. He really never located his curveball. So High Point was kind of eliminating the curveball in their at-bats and had good at-bats against him. And ultimately, High Point walks off with a 10-9 win. So a tough exit for Vanderbilt. I think third straight regional exit for Vanderbilt. I think it's going to be an off-season where bigger picture questions are asked within that program about just philosophy and moving forward and how they get back on track, really, as a program. And it's not like they've bottomed out, but it has been a while since Vanderbilt has been talked about as one of the, a serious national title contender. Since 2021, obviously, they came a game away. It's not that long ago, but things change quickly in the SEC. The other eliminated team, Alabama, Stetson 4, Alabama 0. Just a tough tough offensive showing for Alabama in a situation where I didn't think it would be. I thought that ballpark was a great match for Alabama's offense. Left-handed power with a short right field porch. It just didn't happen. Stetson did a nice job on the mound, and weirdly, that regional has been not that offensive. I mean, UCF Bama, that game was 8-7 Friday, but even that didn't feel like explosion of runs necessarily. So I'm kind of surprised by that the offense just hasn't been there, because Florida State beat UCF, I think 5-2 last night. So not offensive there either. So, Ben has pitched well enough to win, which is something that you couldn't say for a lot of the season, but more so lately, he's been better. So disappointing that all you needed was 5 runs, which this Bama offense could do in its sleep a lot of weeks, and you just didn't get it. So tough exit for Bama. I feel like this was unlike Vanderbilt, where it felt like there was something more there that could have been pulled out. I don't mean this disrespectfully, obviously, but I felt like this for Bama was right about where their level was. I think to get to a regional was a good accomplishment, not just given what they lost after last season, but also with the pitching injuries they dealt with. I thought they did a nice job steadying the ship, and the lineup was good enough more often than not. So I feel like while they're disappointed, I get that. I feel like this exit was about right for Bama. That's my feel on it anyway. All right, now to the rest of the games not involving eliminated teams. Georgia 11, UNCW 2. Georgia's off to the regional final. Just a workmanlike win. Real no stress situation there. And even when Colton Smith really wasn't at his best, he walked 6 dudes in 4 innings and gave up 5 hits. So it was a decent amount of traffic, but he limited it, and then the bullpen was great. And so now Georgia's off to a regional final, which has been the sticking point for them. You'll recall when they hosted in 18 and 19 under Scott Strickland, they would typically get to the regional final, but then it was, not losing 2 games in the regional final was more of the issue there. So we'll see if they can exercise that demon against either UNCW or Georgia Tech tonight. Texas A&M 4, Texas 2, perhaps the best game all day yesterday. 11 innings, wild finish to this one. Really well-pitched game overall. Again, another place that just isn't playing as offensive as you might have imagined. A&M gets a run on a dribbler to third base with the bases loaded. That is a tough, tricky little play. It bounces off the bag, and the third baseman can't smother it. You'll have to go back. I can't fully do it justice by describing it, but just truly a little dribbler to third base. They don't get an out on it, and then a wild pitch scores 2 runs for A&M in the 11th. So they beat arch rival Texas. They will face in the regional final either Louisiana or Texas Sunday night. UNC 6, LSU 2. LSU got Vance Honeycutted. I don't know really how else to put it. Dude hit a couple home runs. The bullpen was great for UNC, and that's kind of their calling card, so it's not a huge surprise there. So this was always the risk with LSU, is like UNC is just a really good team, and you can play pretty clean baseball. And I thought, for the most part, outside of the Vance Honeycutt home runs, Luke Coleman was pretty good, and so yeah, you would have liked to have scored more runs, but I just felt like this wasn't that LSU came out and laid an egg. I think UNC is just really good, and they were playing at home. I think that's kind of all there really is to it. So LSU has to beat Wofford again today to get to the regional final against UNC Sunday night. The tricky part about that, obviously, is that you're going to have to use some pitching to get that done. Now, you can hope that you use very little pitching, but you will have to use some. And so it's tricky. What do you have left for Sunday? And then, of course, Monday is a whole different animal, but you got to win. You got to win Sunday before you can even worry about Monday. So we'll see how that plays out. UVA 5, Mississippi State 4, a walk-off win for Virginia. Technically an error on Amani Larry up the middle. Runners on the corners, 1 out for Virginia. Like a high chopper up the middle. Larry gets short-hopped. He's shifted up the middle, so the ball comes more or less right to him. But a tough short hop on a ball that's probably spinning like crazy, like top spin like crazy. It kind of comes up, caroms off his chest, and doesn't fall in front of him, where he maybe he would have been able to do something at that point. Maybe, probably not, because he would have had to get a double play to keep that run off the board. But ball caroms kind of into the shallow outfield, and that's all she wrote. Virginia wins it. So again, an error and a probably a play that Amani Larry says he should make, and maybe he should, but certainly not a routine play. And Virginia walks off with a win there. K-State 7, Arkansas 6. Nightmare fifth inning for Hagen Smith. K-State hit a couple balls hard. Chuck Ingram, the run that got them on the board, or the second run, I forget, but hit a laser to right field. And then of course Kalen Culpepper's 3-run home run is the big blow, but also just some kind of funky stuff like a Baltimore chop that just got over Ben McLaughlin's head into the outfield. So it wasn't just that K-State figured out Hagen Smith, but it is fair to say that they hit him more than anybody has this season. I mean, even that JMU start, it was just one inning and it was kind of command issues and whatever. This was a different deal. This was K-State really getting to Hagen Smith in a way that no one has really gotten to him. So Arkansas back to play SEMO again. You feel confident they get through that. Gage Wood is starting. The tricky part is that SEMO's just their pitching is thin. It was thin to begin with. So you feel confident that Arkansas is going to score enough here. The concern is, can SEMO hit enough to bait Arkansas into having to use lots of pitchers? And, if you're Dave Van Horn and Matt Hobbs, you have to start to weigh if Arkansas is sitting on 15 runs, do you just kind of find somebody who can wear it? And if that means he gives up 9 runs in 7 innings, you just do it, because the innings are more important than, scoreless innings, right? If that makes sense. So I'll be interested to see how they play that to try to get back to the regional final against K-State. Tennessee 12, Indiana 6. Ho-hum. Tennessee is on the way to its 4th straight regional sweep. Just impressive the way this team, when they play at home in regionals, has just not had any drama in these home regionals. Well, any scoreboard drama, really. There has been drama in their home regionals before. Not even, last year in Clemson wasn't even a home regional, right? But they swept it. But regardless, just impressive the consistency they've shown in the regional round. Just took care of business. 12-6 seems like close-ish, but it wasn't. This really wasn't, really wasn't a competitive game for most of the evening. Kentucky 6, Illinois 1. Trey Poozer to the rescue. Kentucky is off to the regional final thanks to the work of Trey Poozer on the mound. That not only delivered the win, but also puts Kentucky in a situation where they minimized the number of pitchers they had to use. They're a lot fresher going into today. Given their pitching issues, they would like to finish it today because, Monday would get dicey for both teams, to be fair, but you create a little bit of volatility if you can't pitch enough. So impressive for Kentucky to really, after a kind of a wild win over Western Michigan on Friday, to just have a very normal win on Saturday over Illinois. NC State 6, South Carolina 4. Back and forth game, a lot of home runs, a lot of solo home runs. South Carolina gets 2 home runs for Dylan Brewer, who was only in the lineup because of the Ethan Petrie injury, that the hand injury that kept him out of the game, and also Will Tippett. So you get 3 home runs from guys you weren't expecting home runs from, and then you still lose that game is kind of tough, because it felt like you could steal one there. You steal that game, go to 2-0 in the regional without Ethan Petrie, right? That's then you're already without Gavin Casas. So that's that would have been impressive stuff. Would have been a crapshoot if you could hold on there necessarily, but certainly without a couple of your better guys, that would have been an impressive win. But ultimately, NC State comes out on top there. Oklahoma State 7, Florida 1. Florida lineup had nothing for Brian Holiday, Oklahoma State starter. He goes complete game, giving up 1 run. I think they had 10 strikeouts. Cags gave up some home runs early. He settled in a little. He never totally started to cruise, but ultimately, if Florida's offense had been able to do something against Brian Holiday, maybe it would have been good enough to win, but it was not on this day. So that wraps up the day around the SEC, the Saturday around the SEC. Again, a 4-7 day. So a lot of teams playing early, a lot of 12 Eastern, 1 Eastern starts for SEC clubs today, trying to fight their way through the losers bracket. And then, of course, a number of SEC teams also in the regional finals trying to move on. So another busy day. We'll have 9 SEC teams in action today around the country. Okay, a lot of comments waiting for us. I appreciate you guys. Lucas on YouTube said SEC laid a stinker yesterday. I mean, that's one way to put it. I mean, it wasn't great. There were some positives, but not as many. Jeremy Scott, he says, Roll Tide, baseball season may be over, but they're still playing in softball. Yes, congrats to the Alabama softball ladies playing in the Women's College World Series. Jason Armstrong, which one-loss SEC team do you feel best about and feel not so great about? First of all, by the way, Jason, I saw your social media video got played on Squeeze Play on ESPN. So congrats on your 15 minutes of fame there, getting that video played. That's a good question. One loss team that I feel best about, I guess I have to go Arkansas, right? Because if I mean, they're not in a great spot pitching wise, right? But they're the one team we've looked at and said their pitching depth is excellent compared to the rest of the conference. Now they've got some injuries now that are compromising that, but that's still where their bread is buttered, and I'll take my chances there if you made me pick one. Also, because Kansas State's depth is not great. I mean, Kansas State has very good star power. Wentworth, Tyson Neighbors, Kalen Culpepper, those are all guys that would be stars in the SEC too. So their high-end talent is great. The depth is a little more touch and go. So I think that would be a real rock fight if Arkansas was able to get back to the regional final. Team I don't feel great about, I guess, for kind of the other side of that coin, I think it's probably South Carolina. I mean, two of their best power hitters injured. I don't know if they'll magically get Ethan Petrie back today, but if he couldn't play yesterday, it's hard to imagine he plays today, right? Because any injury that keeps you out of a regional game must be pretty tough. And then on the mound, it just kind of is what it is for South Carolina. They have good cards to play in the bullpen, but they've mostly played them at this point. And Gainey started yesterday, so I think I'd go South Carolina. I'm sure several of these teams will get to regional finals, and I'd probably bet at least one pushes everything to Monday. It's just a matter of figuring out which one that is. Nicholas Doherty on YouTube, I thought Holman did pretty good, but 2 bad pitches to a really good hitter is the difference. 100%. I mean, I said this on Baton Rouge radio going into the weekend that this is one of the few regionals where LSU is going to show up and Tommy White is not going to be the best player on the field because Vance Honeycutt is. And that's not just offense. It's also the Vance Honeycutt's a true center fielder and can really run. And he's just got tools on tools. So, yeah, he just got beat by a really, really good player who's, among the most talented guys in the country. James Reynolds on X. SEC lost 7 games yesterday. This has to be a single-day record for most losses by a conference and a single day of a regional tournament. Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to have at least 7 teams in, right, to take 7 losses. So you're talking about SEC and ACC. I don't know that the Big 12 has typically been a smaller conference, so I don't know if they've ever gotten 7 in. Maybe they have. But yeah, I mean, that might be a record, James. You might be onto something. I don't know that offhand, but it is interesting. Sean Miller, Xavier coach Sean Miller, says, good morning, and good morning, Sean. Stressful night for Aggie fans, but a relaxing Sunday morning. Great pitching by both teams. Yeah, I mean, but for both teams to 6 total runs in 11 innings, pretty impressive stuff. I thought for Texas, LeBaron Johnson, who's been inconsistent this year, did a nice job setting the tone. Gage Bain came in for Texas and threw the ball well. And boy, that guy's a diesel. He's like 6'5", 255 or something. Like, that is a large human being for Texas. He was throwing the ball well too. But yeah, so fun game. Certainly a great atmosphere there. And yeah, the Aggies get the early afternoon off. William Cantrell on YouTube. Do you think this Tennessee lineup is better than the 2022 lineup? I think it's deeper. Better is hard to justify. I kind of lean yes, but I definitely think it's deeper. I mean, you look at the guys they have on the bench on any given day, right? Like, Reese Chapman doesn't play every day. Cannon Peebles doesn't play every day. Colby Backus has done some nice things. There are other names I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but they just have guys on the bench that would be starting for tons of other teams, even in the SEC. So they just have so many different cards to play, so many different lineup permutations. Austin says Vandy is going the way of Clemson football. We'll see. I mean, certainly it's a hard thing to stop a slide in the SEC because the league never gets easier, right? So that's the tricky part. James Gillum on YouTube. Carolina without Petrie and Casas, tough. Nice to see Brewer and Tippett step up, but going to need a lot more from everyone. Agreed. Yeah, if South Carolina is going to make this happen, it's going to have to be kind of what we saw yesterday with Brewer and Tippett stepping up. It's going to have to be somebody else today, probably. Sean Miller says, we're going to learn a lot about Arkansas's pitching depth now. What an inning for K-State. 3 straight losses and Hagen Smith starts for Wu. Is that true? 3 straight losses and Hagen Smith starts. I did not know that. That's tough. Yeah, we will learn something. That's a great point. I mean, hey, we've been talking about like this pitching depth. Here's where you show it, right? A regular weekend series, you can show it a little, but this is where you really, against good teams in a regional with that pressure cooker, this is where you show us that you really do have that kind of depth. Clay Phillips, who I know is a Vandy supporter on YouTube. Corbs has a lot of soul searching to do. Got to find some bats and an elite arm, in my opinion. Hashtag adapt or die. Well, and that's why I have faith that they'll figure something out. Like Tim Corbin's been at the top of the game for a long time. And yes, college baseball is changing. The sands are shifting, as they say. But like the guy's a smart guy. He knows how to run a program. I have confidence, even if it means he has to make tough decisions. I have confidence he'll figure something out. Like this idea that it's just over for Vanderbilt, I've never really bought into that. Some people would point to, well, some of the advantages they had from a scholarship and a financial standpoint have kind of gone away in the NIL era, and that might be true, but the administration has been very supportive of Vanderbilt baseball. The administration is in on baseball at Vanderbilt, so I suspect that they will continue to give Tim Corbin what he needs to run a championship level program. Now it's on them to get there, but I'm bullish on them figuring it out and getting better. Sean says 10 elimination games at noon. Thank goodness for Coach Rooney and squeeze play. Yes, if you are, even if your team is playing, but certainly as a neutral, like squeeze play is a clutch play there to keep you apprised of everything going on around the country. Ray John 77 on X. Go Derek Smith, closing that game out. Derek Smith for NC State, excellent. Closing out South Carolina, good stuff there. Obviously because I'm covering the SEC primarily, I've not been up on this, but apparently he's been basically unhittable for NC State of late. So a big weapon there. Josh Woolley on YouTube. I feel bad for Hagen, all the great things he has done, and if Hogs can't come back, he may be most remembered for postseason failures against TCU and K-State. I certainly hope not, right, because of how great he's been. I mean, I get it. Like the postseason is ultimately what people remember and what happened, especially a program like Arkansas that, the postseason is the thing. But I hope that's not ultimately what he's remembered for, but I get it. Especially how special this season's been. I hope there's just a lot of positive memories folks have. Matthew Boyd. How are my Rebels doing? Oh, wait, I forgot. Guess I'm pulling for Godwin and ECU. Yeah, that Greenville regional is going to be a white knuckle ride because I have a feeling ECU is going to beat VCU today, and then Evansville is straight up out of pitching. I mean, that happened yesterday. So not to say that ECU is going to be in a great spot pitching wise, but I have a feeling that's going to be wild. Okay. Kuzi on YouTube says, I know this isn't SEC, but what were your thoughts on the UCF game? I thought about it from the FSU standpoint, which is that in that ballpark, again, Stetson did it too, but in that ballpark to hold UCF down like they did, a great start again for FSU and dealing with the pitching injuries they've had in the starting rotation. The fact that they continue to get good pitching is really impressive. It's one of the reasons why I've been bullish on Florida State as an Omaha team this year. It took me a while to get there. I'm not going to lie to you, but yeah, even with the pitching injuries, they've just cobbled it together. I'm super impressed with Florida State. UCF, a tough one at against Stetson. Stetson has proven themselves to be a good team. That's going to be a fight to get to the regional final. Larry on YouTube says, morning from Houston. Hello, back in H-Town, Larry. He says, Tennessee looks really good. Agreed. They're my national title pick, so that is looking good so far. Swanky Master Ball on X. Will you or someone at D1 go to Lexington if it shapes up to be Oregon State versus Kentucky? Feels Omaha caliber there. Very well might. Burt Granger lives in that region. He lives a couple hours away from Lexington, up in Ohio. And so he might be there again. He's there this weekend. He might be there again. Can't guarantee someone will be there, but I more likely than not, yes, there will be someone there. TBD though. Randy Trujillo says Aggies pitching was great yesterday. Agreed. James Charles, I'm extremely disappointed in LSU. UNC is a good team. I don't see beating them twice. Yeah, it's going to be tough. But James, I would say that I get it. Like, you're disappointed in the loss, but again, like I said earlier, I think LSU played fine. It's just that UNC just might be a better team, right? LSU's been playing great, but UNC is a top 5 team for a reason. And so I think that's more of what it is. But we'll see. If they get to a regional final, certainly I'm intrigued. James also says crazy the Arkansas loss. Agreed. Yeah, I around the time all of that was happening between K-State and Arkansas, I was getting back to my hotel at Athens, and so I turned it on because I was listening to part of it on the radio on the drive back, and they were up 2-0, and I was like, all right, well, we kind of know how this game's going to go, right? This is typical Hagen Smith. And then I turned it on, and it was 6-2 or whatever it was. I had no idea what happened. Like I assumed like maybe Hagen Smith had to leave the game for some reason. So yeah, that was crazy. Is it too early to ask about coaching future questions? James, I suspect you were asking for Mark Kingston reasons. And I would say yes, because I think we need to see how this plays out, right? I mean, because if as unlikely as it is, if South Carolina gets to a super, it obviously complicates things. And I don't know that they would move on either way. That's more of a Kindle question. He's on top of that stuff more than I am. But right now it is too early. We just need to see how this weekend plays out. Jordan Shields says, count me out on wanting to see Indiana again. Those boys can hit. That's true. I mean, there is a little bit of a risk of like, if Indiana puts up 12 runs, that means Tennessee obviously can very easily put up 12 of their own. But, that obviously is a stressful way to live. Mac on YouTube says SEC not living up to the hype. I mean, yeah, a tough day yesterday. No other way to put that. Rajon, this is in regards to Derek Smith. He's been like that since he was little. Such an amazing young man, so humble. That's got to be cool if you've known him that long. I don't know what your relationship is with him specifically, but yeah, if you've known him since he was that young, that's got to be a cool experience. GPS Jen on YouTube says SEC is overrated. Amazing talent, but the depth of the teams was overrated. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in tournament results don't necessarily – you can't draw definitive conclusions one way or the other because it's such a small sample. But, yeah, I mean, some of these 13 and 17 teams in the SEC, like, ultimately some were just, just kind of average teams this year. I think that's kind of the reality, right? I mean, that's the way it goes. Damon Harmon on Facebook. What are your thoughts on Tennessee going all the way? That's who I picked, Damon. I think they've done a nice job on the mound, piecing it together. Obviously, the lineup is elite of the elite. So you love that. Yeah, I think, it's a little bit, once you get into a super next weekend, assuming they get there, and then into Omaha, it gets a little trickier just because the stakes get ratcheted up a little bit. But I like what they've done on the mound, and obviously it's been good enough. Chris C on YouTube says Texas's pitching was awesome as well, and he throws a gig 'em in there. Yeah, just really well pitched game, a lot of fun to watch. James Gillen, this is on Kingston. I'm not against keeping him, but seems like every single other fan fired King 2 years ago. I think that's right. One thing I would say for Kingston is that I would kind of let this coaching staff cook a little bit. I know people get frustrated with pitching coaches, but like Matt Williams is really well regarded as a pitching coach. And Monty Lee is, I think, a superstar as a hitting coach. I would be interested to see what giving this coaching staff another year to cook stuff up, what would happen there. Maybe it doesn't work, but like I think he's got the coaching staff piece right now. And I'd be interested to see what happens there. Maybe they run out of time as a staff. That happens all the time. But that intrigues me. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this edition of Weekend Waypoints. We're coming up on 30 minutes, and I got to get to the ballpark. We have games starting here in about an hour, including in Athens, where I will be today. Enjoy the games. This is it for Weekend Waypoints this weekend, but Mark and I will obviously have a highway to Hoover this week, recapping regional weekend and setting the table for super regionals next weekend. Enjoy the baseball, everyone. I will talk to y'all during the week.